You're listening to the Bulldog Insider Podcast, sponsored by Essentia Health.
Here, our hobbies become our work, and our work becomes our passion. But when joint pain or injuries keep us from doing what we love, it can affect our entire way of life. That's why we meet these challenges head on. Whatever your good day looks like, we'll find it together. This is Essentia Health Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, like nowhere else. Visit essentiahealth.org.
Hello and welcome to the Bulldog Insider Podcast, brought to you by Essentia Health. I'm Matt Wellens, the Bulldogs hockey beat writer at the Duluth News Tribune and the Rink Live.
And I'm Zach Schneider, the television voice of UMD hockey on My Nine Sports.
Also joining us on the podcast for two segments this week. We'll see how it works out. Again, send all your complaints to the complaint department, Wellens at DuluthNews.com. It's the voice of Bulldogs hockey on KDAL, Bruce Ciskie.
Has the complaint department filled up yet?
It hasn't. No one has complained that we are increasing your airtime.
You gave your real email address, Matt. That's a dangerous game you're playing. I would have created a burner account for that complaint department.
Well, I get my Duluth News email address. I mean, you should see the stuff that comes into there. I get some weird press releases. Bruce, I'm sure you get weird press releases in yours as well at the radio station.
I just clicked the box and then I hit spam every time. Like I just got one that says New York ranks #1 in states seeking work-life balance during the pandemic. I don't know why I got that, so it's going spam. Yeah.
A lot of spam in the official one. So I will try and find your complaints about Bruce Ciskie in the spam that comes to my D&T email address. So I wanted to get everyone together here. We're going to start off this segment, start off the podcast this week talking about Bulldogs alumni, because it has been a really good week or so for Bulldogs alumni. We're going to start with the women. A number of them clinched helped their countries clinched berths to the Olympics over the weekend. Sweden is heading back to the Olympics thanks to the efforts of former Bulldog Michelle Lowenheim, Linnea Hedin, as well as current Bulldogs goaltender Emma Soderberg. Meanwhile, the Czech Republic, after a few close calls over the years, they're finally heading to their first Olympics, which means Katarina Mrazova, aka Katka, as we all know her, is heading to her first Olympics for the first time in 29 years. Zach, we'll start with you. Your thoughts on a lot of Bulldogs heading to the Olympics here, and a good showing by the Bulldogs in qualifying this last weekend.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, you add those 4 to, I think it's 6 that are centralized with their various teams that have already qualified. So, we're anywhere between 8 to 12, probably once it's all said and done, going to be on those final rosters, we would think. And we talked with Maura Kroll about this earlier this season. As much as on the men's side, coming to a college is about finding a way to further your development and get to the next level, which is for them, the NHL. The women's game is about getting on the Olympic team. And you look at a player like Mrazova, who maybe had to wait a little bit longer than she wanted to be in the Olympics, but some of that comes down to the other players you have in your country and the opportunity. Compare her to a player like Ashton Bell, who probably wasn't an Olympic caliber player when she got to UMD, and now she's going to be probably a regular on that Canadian team, depending on how the centralization goes. So I think Maura and her staff have done a great job, not only creating what they hope is a perennial power in the NCAA at UMD, but also providing these players an outlet to get to really the pinnacle of women's hockey right now, which is the Olympics.
Yeah, Katka 4 years ago was actually denied. Her and the Czech Republic were denied a spot in the Olympics by Lara Stalder and Switzerland in qualifying there. They expanded the women's Olympic hockey tournament. I believe it's now 12 teams. They went with an even number, because even number tournaments tend to be easier to conduct. On a
tangent, Matt. We're good. This is a short podcast, and it's not going to be anymore.
If you want, we dove it the Rink Live on our Monday Instagram. If you want to hear complaining about 11 team brackets, find the Rink Live on Instagram. Jess Myers, Mick Hatton, and I complained about that. We'll maybe get that. We'll maybe bring Laura Bellamy and Maura Kroll and company back on here, and we can talk about 11 team brackets on another day. Lowenheim, this is her second Olympics. She was on the last Swedish team to make it. Hedin and Soderberg, this is their first Olympics for them. I'm trying to remember now, going down the list, man, it's getting long. Cassie Bettenall, I believe, is the centralized players aren't actually officially Olympians yet. Rosters have to be announced, but Cassie Bettenall's tearing it up with China right now, or I should say the Vanky Rays is who they're playing with in Russia. I highlighted her in a recent Bulldog Insider newsletter. The only way to really get information on that team is to follow the Vanky Rays on Instagram. And Cassie Bettenall's popping up a lot on there. She's scoring a lot of goals for them. Zach mentioned Ashton Bell. Jocelyn Larocque is on there as well. I'd say Larocque's probably a lock, and I would think Bell probably is too. Maddie Rooney's one of 3 goaltenders on Team USA. So unless they go bring in another goaltender, she'll be heading back to the Olympics as well. And who am I missing, guys?
Alexandra Vafina is right now on the Russian team. She played just one season at UMD, but she is technically still a former UMD player.
There's Zach on the deep cuts there of Bulldog Olympians coming up here in Beijing. So that'll be interesting to watch. It's also been a good week for men's alumni of the program as well. Riley Tufte, drafted way back in the first round of 2016 by the Dallas Stars out of Blaine High School. Talk about playing the long game here for the Stars organization in the draft. He made his NHL debut Saturday in Dallas against the Philadelphia Flyers. Only about, I think it was 4 minutes and 25 seconds of ice time, but he got a blocked shot in there. Guys, did either of you get a chance to, well, I believe we were both called in the game we were all watching the game on Saturday, but you guys saw the tweets. Bruce, you saw those tweets of Riley. Pretty cool for him to get his son to watch him there on the glass and see dad play for the first time, wasn't it?
And that was awesome. And give Riley credit, because long game's a kind of an understatement to describe what he put himself through to get to this point. And, you know, he worked his tail off. He's gotten a lot better. The Athletic had an article in September talking about the changes he's made in his off-season training. And it obviously paid off, because here he is, middle of November, making his NHL debut. And as we sit here Tuesday afternoon, I believe he's playing in the next game as well.
Yeah, and he should not have to wear those ugly black and neon green jerseys that
those are hideous.
I believe Mikey Anderson had to wear a hideous LA Kings jersey in his debut as well. That'd be a fun ranking, ugliest jersey having to wear in your NHL debut. Not that those guys care, but the Dallas Stars have some hideous jerseys now. I don't know what is.
Those black ones are awful.
It's been just a horrible decline for that organization since they left Minnesota with such great jerseys, and now they are in Dallas. The other guy coming up making his debut, we're recording this on Tuesday afternoon. So by the time you're reading this, 2020 Hobey Baker Memorial Award winner Scott Perenovich should have made his NHL debut with the St. Louis Blues. He was taken in the second round in 2018. So not a quick turnaround as well for the Blues on that investment. He was a second rounder. That came after he was drafted after he was a freshman at UMD, had that dynamite season. He's had a couple things work against him where Riley's had to grind through the AHL and some minor league seasons and obviously get better to get to this point. Scott had the pandemic stand in his way, even though him and his agent tried to get around tried to find a loophole there originally to get into that pod. If we remember right. We had to, for a while there, keep saying that Scott Perenovich had agreed to an NHL contract. He hadn't signed an NHL contract because he initially had multiple deals hanging out there, hoping to play in the pod, but he didn't get to play in the pod. Then he had the shoulder injury that forced him to miss all of last season. Guys, great to see Scott. He's been tearing it up in the AHL here. Bruce, I'm kind of disappointed that he got called up already, because I was hoping your hashtag would gain traction.
Beam Scotty up is what I came up with in the Grand Rapids airport on that Sunday morning. We were following him and keeping track. And, and he just kept piling up the points, and it was just a matter of time. And the report was, I mean, almost 2 weeks ago now, Torrey Krug had tested positive, I think, for COVID for the Blues, and the Blues wanted to bring up Perunovic, but because the bonuses on his contract as an entry-level deal, those bonuses have to be factored into the salary cap, and the Blues had, by our terms, like $15 a salary cap room, so they had no way of bringing up Perunovic. So they applied with the league and tried to get a COVID exemption because Krug is making like 7.5 a year, whatever it is. And the league said, no, that's not going to happen. We're not going to do any COVID exemptions on the salary cap. So they had to wait it out, and they made some moves yesterday to get under the cap far enough to bring him up. And the expectation is he's going to play, as we sit here Tuesday afternoon, play tonight against the Arizona Coyotes, and he's going to be on the third pair.
And apparently Scotty is going to be rooming with Justin Falk as well. Zach, you guys at My Nine aren't working to try and get like an intermission segment to talk to Justin and Scott. I want to know what those living arrangements, what those conversations are like in the house.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty convinced that, not just those two, but any away from the rink things would have to be severely edited to be TV worthy. I'm sure they'll be fun behind the scenes conversations, but I don't envy those producers at things like 24/7 or the Road to the Winter Classic, because I imagine there's quite a few, shots that they can't use and whatnot, but those guys will have some fun. And I think, it's probably important to remember that both Scotty and Riley at this point are only 23 years old. So, I mean, it seems like their roads to the NHL were long and winding. They were different for sure. Riley's maybe a little bit more of a grind than Scotty's at this point, minus the injury, but these guys are still young. And I think they're both at a point that from the outside looking in, it feels like their development's at a point where they could be setting themselves up for pretty long NHL careers. So I think they're both in a really good spot right now.
Well, no, but Scotty's long game is different than Riley's, because you might remember Scotty was drafted his third year of draft eligibility, which a lot of guys don't even get 3 years of draft eligibility. So he went through 2 drafts playing juniors and nobody touched him. And then he had that year at UMD, a fabulous freshman season. And all of a sudden teams started calling.
All right, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll have my interview with Bulldogs Olympic goaltender Emma Soderberg. We're going to talk to her about getting Sweden back into the Olympics, which is a huge deal for that country. Soderberg had a shutout in the second of the 3 qualifying games over the weekend in Sweden. So we're going to take that break, come back. We'll have more with Bruce and Zach as well. You're listening to the Bulldog Insider Podcast, brought to you by Essentia Health.
I'm McHatton.
I'm Jess Myers, and we are the co-hosts of the Rink Live podcast. We really pride ourselves on finding some unique guests and covering some of the topics of the day, not only in college hockey, but kind of across a broad spectrum.
Yep, we also talk junior hockey. We'll get some of that talk in there as well. Women's hockey, men's hockey. We try to talk to people from throughout the game and actually from all over the country. That's been one of the great things on Zoom.
And Mick and I are kind of OG, the Rink Live guys. We were here from the start, about 3 years ago now when things got off the ground, but we brought a fair amount of college hockey experience to this job. I went to Minnesota Duluth. I covered college hockey starting then when I was a student. I've covered the Frozen Four 28 times, and I primarily cover the Minnesota Gophers now for the Rink Live, but dabble in a little bit of everything.
And I've covered St. Cloud State hockey. Now this will be my 12th season. So please check us out on the Rink Live podcast on Mondays.
Welcome back to the Bulldog Insider Podcast. Matt Wellens here, joined now by, I can't say Olympian yet, correct? Joined by Bulldogs senior goaltender, Olympic hopeful still, Emma Soderberg. Emma, you just got back Tuesday from Sweden and such. Your team gets into the Olympics, winning qualifying, going 3-0. Let's start just for Sweden. What does it mean for this country, for this program, the women's hockey program, to be back in the Olympics after everything it's had to fight through to get back to this stage?
Well, it means a lot to the program. It's been a couple of tough years for Team Sweden, so since the regulation from the Worlds. So this is a great, the program has done a lot of reshaping, and we have gotten into a really good place where everyone is confident in what we're doing. So it's really good and fun for Sweden to be back where I think we should be.
What does it mean for you to be part of that resurgence of Team Sweden at the international level?
It's very exciting to be part of the process, and like being able to be on the team that qualified to get back to the Olympics is a great honor.
When you guys clinched it on Sunday and you win it, finishing 3-0 there, what did that day mean for you and then also for a couple former Bulldogs are on that team? I'm thinking of like a Michelle Lowenheim who had played in the Olympics before and now gets to go back. If she's announced on that final Olympic team, what do you think it meant to those players?
I think it was like a lot of relief for a lot of players. Like it's been a goal for so long. Like we knew this tournament was coming up for us. So I don't know. It means a lot to the former Bulldogs that's been there too. So, but I don't know. Like everyone's just excited. It's nice to be back.
How much was it like joy that you're going back to the Olympics, and how much was it, relief that the program's finally back to where it needs to be?
I would say probably 50-50. Like you were standing there, like it was so exciting being in the tournament, but you all also knew like the outcome we needed. And like after the game, like when we beat France 3-2, it was just like such a relief. Like people were like crying in the locker room, just like being happy. So yeah.
What was it like going into the qualifying tournament for Sweden? You guys are on the cusp of getting back to the Olympics, but as we saw, unfortunately, with Nina and Germany being the top seed, the home team doesn't guarantee anything. What was the feeling like going into qualifying?
We felt really confident in what we were doing. We knew that it was going to be tough, and some of the teams we hadn't played before. But yeah, all of our practice has been good, and we felt confidence in what we were doing. So.
For you, they haven't named that final Olympic roster yet, but you seem to be in a pretty good position to make that final team. What would it mean to you to have Olympian added to your name?
Like, it's a dream of mine since I was a little kid. Like, I always wanted to go to the Olympics. And especially now, like when it was unsure for so long that if Sweden were even to be in the Olympics, it would mean a lot to me if I were to be named on the final roster.
Coach Laura Bellamy posted that photo on Twitter of you and Coach. It looked like you were at a Starbucks by campus there. That was 2016. That was during your recruiting visit. Tell me, what did you guys talk about during that recruiting visit and that conversation as it pertains to getting you to the Olympics? What were the coaches selling you on?
Well, they were just like talking about their program and like how competitive it is and like all the resources I would have here that could help me towards like reaching my goal of being an Olympian. And it was like things like how our practices are, how the facilities are, like goalie coaching and all of that. That was really why I wanted to come here.
At UMD, what here helped you grow the most to get to this point, to being on the verge of going to Beijing for the Olympics?
It's been like our practices and like how this program is. Like every day in practice, you have to battle so hard. And I've been getting a lot of support, like from Chris Esposito before, and like with Lou, and like the coaches in general is just like very supportive and like trying to help me become better every day.
Do you like the makeup of this coaching staff? And for you, who wants to compete on the highest international level, you got Coach Laura Schuler here now, who coached Canada in the Olympics. Coach Kroll has, coached at the U18 level. How valuable is that to have people that have that experience on the international level, on the big stages?
Well, they know what is needed for players to be on the international level. So it's great to have that on the coaching staff. Like not everyone has that. So we have a lot of experience on our hands, which is really cool for us players because we have a really good coaching staff supporting us every day.
So do you know what would the timetable be here? Estimated timetable of, do you know when Sweden's going to name that Olympic team and when you would be reporting over there, in preparation for the Olympics?
So I'm not really sure when it will be. I know there's a Three Nations tournament in Switzerland in the December 13 to 19. And I'm not sure if the team they're naming then will be the team they're taking to the Olympics or if that will be another like tryout opportunity or not. And we don't have any dates for when the pre-camp for the Olympics would be. It just says to be decided, but January.
How do you now change your mindset to back to the Bulldogs here, back to, wanting to get back to a national champ, back to the Frozen Four and compete for that national championship? Is that a tough transition mindset wise or easy for a goaltender? You just go out there and stop pucks.
I think it's not like a hard transition back, because I know this program has gotten me to where I am right now. So being here is the best place for me to be in. Like, obviously, my focus is on the team. Like, we came so far last year, and we know we want to get further this year. So that's a great motivation for me coming back. Like, it's just like go time.
All right, some quick hitters to finish things out here. If you're in the Olympics, what current or former Bulldog would you most like to face off against in a shootout?
Most likely to face off in a shootout. Stalder, I think.
You want to go one-on-one with Stalder? That's ambitious because I've watched her at shootouts here. She was deadly when she was in college. Why Stalder? Because she's a challenge?
Yeah, it's a great challenge. Like, I played her against her 1 year in Sweden. Like, she's one of the best, so that's why I would want to face up against her.
Have you faced her before?
Not on the national team level, but we played each other in Sweden for a year.
If you could sign an NIL with any company, you already have one. You're with Royalty, I believe, right?
No, I just helped out on the.
Okay, you're just Maddie's just recruiting you all for her side business of photography, which we really need to get her on the podcast to talk about it. It's good she's shooting. She's got her dog, which makes up a lot of photos. But okay, if you could sign an NIL with any company, who would you sign with? Who would you want to sign with?
Oh my, that's really hard on the top of my head. We have this company in Sweden who sells it's called Nocco, and it's like these amino acid drinks that's really good, and I usually drink them in Sweden, so that's what I would choose.
I was gonna say, I think Stalder and Katka both have deals with them because I see it all over their social media, and it seems like the company takes care of them pretty well.
It's really a popular brand in Sweden.
What's the most important non-hockey related thing? If you're named to the Olympic team, you'd have to bring with you to China.
Ooh, a non-hockey related thing to bring. I would bring some Swedish candy.
I was going to say, we were just talking with your coaching staff has a fondness for Swedish candy and Swedish coffee. What are the key things you have to bring back from Sweden every time for them?
Well, I always bring coffee, and just I bring back some random candies for them to try. So there's nothing else than that, I think.
All right, because I'm a big craft beer guy. I heard your mom is a huge fan of Fitker's Apricot Wheat. Can you tell me the story behind that?
Well, so it was before I came on my first official visit. Mom had a friend at her gym that went to the Louvre and had the Apricot Wheat. So he told her, you have to try this when you get to the Louvre. So obviously during my visit here, we lived at Fitker's. Mom went and tried the apricot wheat, and ever since then she can't stop talking about it. So now when I go home, I try to bring her some every time.
And what's your suggestions for getting beer through TSA? I'm curious on this as someone who travels on the road and wants to bring beer back from Denver and everything like that. I'm not trying to bring it through customs or anything, but what's the key?
I just had it in my hockey bag so far, and I haven't really looked at any rules, so hopefully I don't get in trouble.
Nothing's exploded at all in the plane, right? That's always my biggest fear.
Yeah, it has. That was my surprise. I thought that's what was going to happen, so I just put it in plastic bags to be safe. But so far, all of the crawlers have made it over safely. That's
awesome to hear. All right, last one. Maddie Rooney, when she won gold, she called out Justin Bieber on late night television for a shootout. If you could call out any celebrity to go one-on-one in a shootout with, who would it be?
Oh, I don't think I have a good answer for that.
You're not as prepared as Maddie with a shirt and everything ready to go?
No, I'm sorry.
All right. I'm never going to live that down. That was one of the craziest moments we saw. Emma, thank you so much for joining the podcast. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
We're going to take a quick break, and we'll have more with Bruce and Zach. This is the Bulldog Insider Podcast, brought to you by Essentia Health.
Hey there, my name is Samantha Urkala, and I'm the host of the Duluth News Tribune Minute podcast. Hear the most important news of the day, including weather and sports, from Duluth, Minnesota, and from around the Northland. Join me and my fellow reporters as we take you through the local news you need to start your day. Episodes are released Monday through Friday and are available on Apple, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for supporting local journalism.
Welcome back to the Bulldog Insider Podcast, brought to you by Essentia Health. I'm Matt Wellens, joined by Zach Schneider and Bruce Ciskie. So a few weeks ago, guys, we handed out some first month awards for the UMD men's team. We're going to do that now for the women. We waited because they took 3 weeks off for Olympic qualifying and had a non-conference series that they hoped to get in there. That didn't happen. So we're going to do that now because I'm calling it US 2 week. The women are traveling down the road to Bemidji State to play the Beavers. The men make the much longer, more grueling grind down US 2 all the way to Grand Forks to play North Dakota. But we're going to focus on the women here. We're still going to call them the first month awards, even though we're now like a month and a half into the season, because the women have played a month's worth of games, if that makes sense. And it's also, these are made up awards, so we can really call them whatever we want. Who is your top forward so far for the Bulldogs to start the season? Zach, you get to start.
I hope I'm not falling victim to recency in these awards or what's new and flashy, but I'm going with Elizabeth Jaguar, maybe because I didn't get the chance to see her as much as the others, but she's really kind of jumped off the page in the first month for the women. I think that she was obviously a terrific addition for Maura Kroll and her staff. Anytime you can add a Patty Kazmaier winner to your roster, it's going to be good, but she's been fantastic on that top line for UMD.
5 goals and 8 assists for Ciskie. Bruce, who do you got as your top forward of the women so far?
I'm picking her center, Gabby Hughes, who I think was tremendous last season in that shortened campaign, and she steps her game up even to an even greater extent this year, to the point that she earned herself a letter on her jersey that they slapped down there during this 3-week bye that they had. But Gabby's not just their leading scorer. She is such a big part of everything this team does on the ice. I got to go with Gabby Hughes.
Yeah, and she's a big, I think, an inspirational player off the ice. We heard, I wrote about her story this year. We often talk about the fun gifts that the players make. Anna Klein taking cake to the face and such. But Gabby did her gift honoring a player that she used to coach and that her family knew, who died of suicide. She definitely deserves that A, not just for what she's done on the ice, but I think off the ice, she's become a real big leader as well. Man, I don't know how to pick between Gabby and Ciskie on this one, because Ciskie is, I think I'm going to go Jaguar just because I think she has taken this offense to a whole new level. I think Hughes and Klein are kind of continuing what they've been doing. Actually, not even saying that. Those two have been risen. I think those two have been brought to a whole new level because of Jaguar's addition to the team. Who's our top defenseman? Bruce, who's the top defenseman on the Bulldogs so far?
I think it's Maggie Flaherty. She's still playing top pair minutes, and now she's shouldering an even greater role with Ashton Bell being centralized to Team Canada. She's impacted offensively. She is always good defensively. She's very physical. She's got just the spirit that I think kind of helps this team along as well. I think Maggie Flaherty is the top choice here.
Zach?
I went with Nina Job Smith, her partner. I think from her first year to her second year, she took a huge jump. Like Bruce said, playing a lot more minutes, now playing alongside Maggie in a lot more situations than she did last year, with kind of a more experienced decor in her freshman year. So, I went with Job Smith. But again, you can't go wrong with those two. I mean, they're probably neither of them is having as good a year without the other, same as Hughes and Jaguar and Klein on that top line. They make each other better, and the fact that they play well together is great for UMD.
Yeah, I'll go with I'll side with Bruce on this one on Flaherty. Lizzie Norton, I think, also deserves consideration in here. I think defensively she's been really solid. Nina Job Smith, good news, bad news on her from Olympic qualifying. Bad news, her and the Germans, after an loss on the first day, they're unable to sneak into the Olympics, even though they were the hosts there. So that's the bad news for Nina. She doesn't get to make it to the Olympics this year. They're going to have more chances for sure for Germany. Good news, the Bulldogs won't be losing her for possibly a month as well. And I think that's important for their blue line. They're going to need Nina back there in the second half of the season. Who's your most improved so far after a month's worth of games? Zach?
Clara Van Wieren. I think she's been really, really good. And when she came in, she's kind of one of those forwards, especially on the women's side, that has a lot of size, can skate well, should be able to protect the puck. And I think it took her maybe all of last season to really get comfortable with the college game, which is pretty typical of the women's game because there's not that junior hockey gap for them. So they're coming in right out of high school. The game's quicker. UMD plays against a lot of the top teams in the nation throughout the entirety of the year. So I think that's pretty typical, but she's played really well as a sophomore, provided some provided some goals. I think she's got 3 or 4 right now. And so I think she's kind of taken that step that they would want to be a top 6 forward.
Bruce, how about you?
I'm going to say actually Lizzie Norton. I think she's added a little more offense to her game this year, which they need back there. Again, with Ashton's absence, it's not going to be one player that replaces everything that she does. And I think Lizzie stepped up offensively and offered something there that maybe I think we all knew she had the ability. Maybe she wasn't put in positions to show that before, but I think it's been kind of a welcome addition to that blue line for UMD.
Yeah, and I'll go with Van Weeren as well, but it's not just like the jump from last year to this year. Like I actually didn't think Van Weeren got off to a great start for UMD. Her decision making was a little off. She seemed like she was trying to do too much. Like she was trying to she knew this is a year that she needed to step up and be a bigger part of the offense. So she was making some questionable decisions as she was that try too hard mentality out there. But I thought against St. Thomas, I thought that was her best series of the weekend. And that's where you saw, when she's thinking things through, when she's not trying too hard, when she's letting the game come to her a bit, she's very, very good. And I think that's, I look at Van Weeren as, when Giguère and Klein move on, obviously after this year, unless the NCAA starts handing out more years of eligibility, which I doubt it. But, when Gabby Hughes eventually moves on as well, Van Weeren's going to be that offensive force and that leader on the team. And so it'll be interesting to see how she continues to progress. But I think just this season, we're seeing her grow as well right now. Who's the top rookie? This is a tough one because the rookies haven't seen a lot of time on this team. Bruce?
Gabby Kraus, I thought had a really good series at St. Thomas, and not just because she scored, but you could see her started to play with a little more confidence. She got a little more ice time as a result of that. I think Gabby Kraus is probably the one right now that's kind of separated herself amongst, like you said, a group that hasn't had a ton of minutes so far.
Zach, you got a different answer or no?
Hannah Baskin's probably the only other one that really warrants a ton of consideration, just because she's, like you guys said, has been able to play a little bit more than the other freshmen to this point. And the players like Brianna Fearman and Mary Kate O'Brien, they'll get their chances, probably later in the year. And but Baskin and Kraus so far have solidified some depth for UMD. They're not expected to go out there and be 20-point players. They're not expected to go out there and light up the stat sheet, but they're important because you've got to put them over the boards with the expectation that they're going to do things right. They're not going to give up, untimely goals, and they can provide a little bit of rest for those top end players that we've talked about so far. And so far they've done that. Give those players a break, and let them go out and do what they're best at, and your time will come. That's kind of how the women's game is built. And so far those players have done that for the Bulldogs.
Yeah. Gabby Kraus in that last series against St. Thomas. Taylor Anderson is out. The door opened, Coach Kroll and staff gave her an opportunity for some extra ice time. And I thought she did a great job, seizing it there. Who is the MVP of the Bulldogs as they get restarted here against Bemidji? Zach, we'll let you start.
This is that valuable term. We've been talking about best forward, best defenseman, most improved. To me, that's sometimes different. And there's so many different arguments about, what value you bring to a team. But this is where I think that I agree with the two of you at the top, that Gabby Hughes is probably the most valuable player at this point to UMD. Not just what you guys talked about on the ice, and she's pretty comparable with Giguère in terms of points and their talent abilities. But the fact that she got added to the captaincy as an alternate in season, that says to me that, as a senior, there were things that maybe the coaching staff or the team, still wanted from her, going into the off season to not be on the captaincy roster, going in. Certainly I don't think I would replace anybody. The leadership group that they have is great, but for Gabby not to be on that and then 3 or 4 weeks in be added to it, might say something about, hey, we need more from you, whether it be on or off the ice. We need you to be that voice in the locker room. Maybe they were challenging her and she responded in the right ways. And I think that we have seen her be more of that inspirational, more of that leader than she was in her first 3 years. She's always been one of the best players on the ice. It's just a matter of, are you doing the other things that really warrant that consideration? And now as a senior, she has, and I think that's what makes her so far the MVP.
Bruce, I feel like Zach summed it up pretty well there.
Yeah, I think he did. I mean, if it's not Hughes, it's Jaguar, and we're having these conversations about the impact she's made on the lineup and what she's done from a kind of that quiet leadership standpoint to help bring this team along offensively. But yeah, I can't argue with Gabby Hughes. I think she's been tremendous in every way, shape, and form.
I'm going to go completely out of left field here on my MVP. And because these are made up awards, we can stretch who can win these. I'm giving it to Maura Kroll because she expanded the end. She helped, not single-handedly, but played a major force, her and Laura Bellamy, in expanding the NCAA women's hockey tournament, which had been stuck at 8 teams since 2005. And they not only they asked for 10. We make fun of this tournament going to 11 teams because 11 is just really odd. It's not a hard bracket to do, but it's just an odd number of teams for the NCAA tournament. But they had asked for 10. And in the end, they're getting 11. Now they asked for 10 the first time. We're told they could ask for more. So because they're logical people, they asked for 12. And the NCAA, in its illogical response, went with 11 because they decided they wanted to do some math. Good for you on the math, NCAA. But hey, she got that. I think it's just a major accomplishment. What her and all the other coaches and everyone involved in the process. Kudos to Josh Burlow, the athletic director at UMD as well. He's part of that, women's ice hockey committee. They supported the coaches. They helped them, get this done. The commissioners in women's hockey, a month into the season, for them to get this tournament expanded after they were basically told no back in September. I think that's the best accomplishment. It doesn't just help the Bulldogs. It helps all of the sport. So that's my MVP. Am I sucking up to the coach here? Maybe, but I think that's the biggest story in women's hockey right now is that tournament going up to 11. And it makes a world of a difference, I think, for this UMD women's hockey team, especially in a season when the WCHA is, those top 4 teams, it's ultra competitive. There's no way 4 teams, maybe even 3 teams are getting into the tournament if it's 8 teams still this year. At 11, I think there's a good chance you could see 4 WCHA teams, Wisconsin, Minnesota, UMD, Ohio State, all playing in the national tournament. Should it expand here in 2022, which all sources that I've talked to, they believe it is entirely possible. May not be perfect, but they're going to expand to 11 teams here this year to get that going. So
yeah, the goal, right, is to stay in the top 8 and not have to worry about the expansion playing a role in it. But yeah, if they're team 10 or 11 and, they get a chip and a chair in the tournament because of the work that Coach Kroll and Bellamy did on the expansion project, then that's great, and then you get a chance to continue your season. And, we've seen miracle runs happen for UMB teams in the past. So who knows? If you're going to go with Maura Kroll as the most valuable player in this made up award, then, the player that needs to do better is the NCAA. And I know we'll have more time to talk about this, but for all the work that they did, it's not just odd. It's not just illogical. It's downright stupid that they have 11 and not 12. And I will die on that hill whenever we want to have a longer conversation about it. I tweeted about it. It's just stupid. I know they're going to be happy with the added 3, but there's no reason they shouldn't have 4 more. And whoever the 12th team is, whoever the first team out once they do expand to 11, should be downright pissed.
Yeah, that'll be it. That's going to be interesting now when that final pairwise rankings comes out. Who is? The last seed is probably going to be the NUHA doesn't have an automatic bid yet, so it's going to probably still be College Hockey America. They're usually outside that top 8 yet, but that will be interesting in the very end. All right, we'll have more time to talk NCAA tournament, the NCAA tournament later when we find out when this tournament actually officially expands. It'll happen either this season most likely, if they can't get things figured out, then it might be delayed a week, or not a week, a year. Who knows? We just expanded the tournament in the, a month and a half into the season, which is crazy to me. Just as crazy as adding an extra day in between the NCAA men's regionals, and not having a plan for how that's going to work yet either. And it's the middle of November. All right. Thanks a lot to Bruce for joining us for an extended period of the podcast. Zach, thanks for joining us from the Twin Cities as always. Thanks to Emma Soderberg for taking time out of her busy schedule, coming back from Sweden to talk with us on the podcast as well. Bulldog Insider comes out every Thursday, and you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe and rate us. For more Bulldogs hockey coverage, visit therinklive.com and DuluthNewsTribune.com. Bruce, what's the radio schedule look like this week?
Well, as my dear friend, the late great Lou Latto used to say, as long as I'm here, it doesn't matter where here is. And I will be here Friday and Saturday, pregame at 6:30 Friday, 5:30 on Saturday, 6:10 a.m., 103.9 FM. Online, KDAL610.com. We have the KDAL app. You can also listen on our radio. And for those on the women's side, I want this tournament to be 12 teams, but I don't hate the number 11 as much as these two guys do.
11 was actually my number growing up playing soccer. So I'm fond of the number 11.
Who cares?
An 11 team.
Who cares what number you wore in soccer? I wore number 22. Who gives it?
Not going to disparage the number 11 team. I am not a fan of an 11 team bracket. It's weird.
It is
plain weird. Zach, you don't get to rant about 11 team brackets on TV this weekend, but we got some My Nine coverage of UMD hockey.
No, Judd and I did sneak in some women's hockey expansion talk during the 5-0 win on Friday night against Colorado College, though. So we got our fix in on My Nine. But no, we got both games.
How did you work that in? Like 5-0 Bulldogs, which is 5's an odd number. That's also an odd number. The NCAA women's hockey tournament. How did you work that in?
I didn't try to be that clever. I said it's 5-0. The game's going on. We're going to talk about something else. It was about midway through that third period when I figured, that was more interesting than what was happening on the ice at that point. But we got both games for you this weekend at North Dakota, Friday and Saturday. Both will be on My Nine. Judd and I are not making the trip. We are not calling the games from Duluth. So you get the North Dakota broadcasters. We're doing that for both our away series this year. That was decided long ago in the summer. So we'll be taking the straight away feed for that Friday and Saturday, but you get to watch the games, and hopefully the team can continue its momentum from this past weekend out in Grand Forks.
All right. Teamwork, NCHC broadcaster teamwork happening this season between North Dakota and the UMD teams. Thanks to the Bulldog Insider podcast sponsor, Essentia Health. We appreciate their support of not only this podcast, but the Bulldog Insider newsletter as well. If you can't remember what Bruce and Zach say every week on this broadcast information, subscribe to the Bulldog Insider newsletter. I have all their radio and TV info in there every week under follow, watch, listen. I don't think I've screwed any of that up yet so far this year, or at least neither of these two guys have told me that I've screwed it up. We're going to take off next week for Thanksgiving, because we're three guys that like food. So we're gonna, and you don't need to be listening to us while catching some football, eating some turkey, and hanging out with your family. So we'll be back in 2 weeks. Catch us then. Thanks for listening.